You are so awesome.
I don't know why that goes into a second bit of that. But hey, guys, welcome to Driveway Liberty Podcast. I am Wes, and I'm here with my good friend Dan. Tonight, you are going to be enlightened. You are the chosen few folks that watch this show. And by few, right now, I do mean few. But we are so glad you're here, and we want you to join the chat. If you've ever looked at the political world around you and wondered what in the wide world of sports is going on, tonight we're going to show you why. We've dug deep. Your eyes will be opened. Things will be revealed upon you tonight. Before we do, Dan, how you doing, buddy?
Wes, I'm feeling very thankful.
Are you?
Yeah,
Why is that?
Thankful that I'm not on the government teat.
Right?
Yeah.
Man, it's I feel sorry for somebody that has been, suckling at the teat of government and have drastically had that cut off. I'm not unsympathetic to that at all. But I'm also not mad because we need to shut down a lot of government permanently.
Yeah. Well, I feel bad for the people who absolutely need it, the people who can't work, etc.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure those people aren't left by the wayside. It's the people who are fully capable of going out there and working and choose not to, or choose to, work part-time, etc. So
Right.
hopefully it's a lesson learned, and you come to understand that the government is not something you want to have as your sole means of support.
Well, you need to be reliant on the government because, I mean, depending on which party that you are, you align yourself with. I mean, one or the other. And I'm not saying Republicans are above this. I mean, right now they are the heroes.
Has nothing to do with the party. This is an American systemic cultural issue where not everyone, the majority of people are used to the government feeding them, basically,
Right.
or providing for them in whether it's recreational, whether it's essentials, and everything in between. Once we learn that we shouldn't rely on the government, you won't be feeling the pain during times like this. I'm not
You
feeling
and I we were talking about this. We were talking about a certain local church that's buying up all this property and stuff like that. And I've maintained this same belief for years that if the church would be doing what part of their calling is, and that's taking care of the poor, helping those the weak and the meager, and doing their part, government would have never stepped in and started becoming such a bloated entity. That would have been part of it,
Now you're in a situation where they don't have to, so they buy up convenience stores and gas stations and make massive real estate transactions and own a boatload of property. Right. Have sound systems that would make a concert promoter blush.
Accurate, and big screens. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they've got the biggest big screens in town, I think. You can.
Gordon jumped in. Did you see Gordon's comment?
I did. I actually had just posted that on the screen, buddy.
There you go. He's not wrong. Yeah. Hi, Gordon.
There, I'll post it again. There it is. Anyway, guys. Hey, guys. Thanks in advance for sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We were looking at our numbers a little bit today, and we put a lot of time. We actually put more time into the pre-show these days than we ever did in the past. And for us to continue doing that, we need you, because you are the chosen few who watch this show and hang out. We need you to help us get the word out about the show. That way we can justify continuing to do this, because Dan and I can go down to a bar and we can have these same discussions without going.
we have many times.
Matter of fact, when we weren't doing the podcast, that's exactly what we would do. So, we appreciate your support. It doesn't cost you a dime to share. It doesn't cost you a dime to comment. Even if you disagree with us, chime in and give us your thoughts. We're not going to blast you unless it's dumb. But, we want everybody to have civil discourse, and that's part of why we decided to come back and start doing this, is so we can have adult conversations about adult things and agree and disagree like adults. So that being said, speaking of adults, we would assume they were adults because we pay them on average, depending on which house they're in, upper house or lower house, minimum $147,000 a year. Let's just round it to 150. Plus we provide.
I thought we were up to like 174 now.
It depends on which side of the house you're in.
Oh, the senators make less?
The senators actually make a little more, if I recall correctly. I may be wrong on that, and I probably should have looked that up before I even brought up pay.
Well, the House makes 174.
Okay, there you go. Well, I'm going off of old numbers, outdated numbers.
I'm going off of what AOC tells us.
Oh, okay. Well, they shouldn't be making that much. If
no.
we're being honest. Not only do they make that, let's get into this a little bit. So, and I think it's important because of what we're going to talk about before we get into the plan that's being used to just kind of destroy our country, which we're going to get into in depth here in a minute. But we're also going to talk about this house shutdown, or this government shutdown, a little more. But if you're a representative in Congress, not only do you get that paycheck, but you get a separate amount of money for your staff, for housing while you're in Washington, for offices both in Washington and your district, or if you're a senator in your state. I mean, it is so bloated. You would, plus health insurance and pension. If they serve a term, they get paid their salary for the rest of their life. A lot of people don't realize that. So even if you vote a dirtbag out, he's still making his money. Matt Gaetz is still making his salary right now. That's how that works. So
I guess I got to run for Congress.
And I wrote a song called Public Office, about this very subject. And then they go up there and they get insider trading information. And I'm generalizing. I'm sure there are some that don't do this, but you go in there and you get insider trader information and you turn your $175,000 salary into a vast pocketbook of wealth.
I don't understand. This is the thing I see is you've got people who, let's just use AOC as an example. She's a bartender.
Sure.
Now, some bartenders make pretty good money, and AOC was probably a good bartender. I'm
Yeah.
sure she was fine for her customers to look at, made decent tips, etc.
Right.
But you're I don't care what bar you work in, you're not six-figure millionaire close as a bartender. So
Not
now,
unless you're doing a little something on the side, you're dealing a little powder or
well,
something
yeah,
nefarious.
let's just say she was on the up and up. And so she gets elected to Congress, and she served, I think, 3 terms. Does that sound right? Maybe she's in her third or
I
fourth.
think she's in her third, but
Third.
I'm going to look that up in just a minute. I'm looking up another stat while you're talking.
So it's very difficult to find her net worth numbers because I think they're hiding it. But you look at the clothes she wears, the car she drives, the apartment she lives in.
Right.
Everything is a massive upgrade. That's just AOC in 3 years. And we had a politician on the show that actually sat in the driveway and said bad things about my garden, who told us that it's a cesspool.
Yeah.
It's an absolute cesspool. You go into Congress or Senate or really any political office, and there's so much money thrown at you because businesses, the lobby, etc., rely on your vote. And you can't tell me that these people are not influenced. They all are. Almost every single one of them.
It is inside that beltway is a different world.
Yep.
It is out of touch. They're not grounded in reality. They feel like they are better than us, that they are.
Well, the decisions they make don't affect them.
No, not at all.
They affect all the other Americans, but they don't affect them.
Yeah, and the lobby's a part of it. Now, and that brings up a great point, John. A lot of people, they get mad at capitalism and the large corporations. But in all reality, the problem is corporatism, whereas government is big enough and has so much influence that somebody with the right amount of money can go in there and buy policy that is befitting
100%.
to them.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what corporatism is. We're not in a true free market. We are not in a true free market.
I don't know.
And it's absolutely it's silly of us to even consider that we are. But yeah, lobbyists are an issue. But you also can't blame corporations or non-government entities or special interest groups from hiring them. I mean, if the NRA lobby hadn't been in existence, the Second Amendment would probably been squashed years ago.
Yeah,
Not
I mean,
everything
you have
they do.
to. That's the world we live in. They have no choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pensacola just hired a lobby firm for $80,000 a year, or maybe it was Santa Rosa County, one of the local counties here in the Panhandle. If you're watching somewhere else, which you're probably not, based on most recent numbers. So, little dig. All right, man, let's get into this. Let's talk about what is and what isn't the issue here with the government shutdown. Let's talk about this right here, Daniel. You sent this to me, so you tell me about it.
So one of the big arguments out there is that the Republicans have all 3 branches in the government, so they own the shutdown. Well, in reality, all the Republicans are voting for the clean CR that they put together, and 13 times now in a row, all but I think 3 Democrats voted against it. So the Democrats own the shutdown because they're the ones that are voting against opening the government back up 13 times.
13 times.
13 times.
15 as of today.
Oh, well, all right. So they voted 2 more times, so 15.
The last number I saw was 15. I may be wrong, but I thought I heard Johnson actually say 15.
Well,
I've got it in my
13
notes.
or 15. It's
15. Yeah, I wrote it down. 15.
Impact. And then they're arguing that the shutdown is not over illegal aliens getting health care. That's 100% false. So Section 2141 of the Democrats' counter proposal is to fund the government. They're demanding a provision that would give illegal aliens access to free health care. It's in it.
Right.
Add to that the provisions that were in not the Recovery Act. What was the other one that got us through COVID that Biden passed?
Let's just call it COVID-19 bill.
Yeah, the COVID bill. Those items in there, which were tax credits for healthcare and some other things, are set to sunset, and the Democrats don't want it to sunset. They also are trying to use the current shutdown to lessen the impact of the big beautiful bill.
Right.
So they're adding a bunch of stuff to counteract some of the things in the big beautiful bill. They keep saying that millions of Americans are going to lose their health care. Social Security is getting cut. Well, in reality, Social Security is actually going to be available for more people. It's going to expand the dollars in Social Security because they're getting rid of the fraud and waste.
Right. That allows more people to be able to dip in the pot and get more money.
So instead of Social Security running out of money, it'll last longer due to the big beautiful bill. Sure. So when they say this, they take a number. They're like, okay, the number's here and the number is lower. So they say, all right, they're cutting Social Security. Well, in reality, they're not. They're just fixing it.
Right.
That's part of the big beautiful bill.
They're cutting out the waste. And here's the thing. There are 15 different votes. These are the notes I had. All Republicans, except for Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, have voted to reopen. And look, if anybody's been consistent on spending, those two guys have. So,
well, let's be clear. They're not voting to keep the government shut. They're voting not to pass the CR and keep spending the same amount. Right. They don't want the current rates to continue even for another, 7 months or however long it's going to be before we can negotiate some kind of long-term, another freaking omnibus bill that screws us all for another 2 years or however long they last.
So what's important in all of this is Republicans aren't making any new demands in this. They are not holding up votes. They are not asking for more money for anything else. They're just wanting to continue the existing budget and spending levels that existed prior to this shutdown.
Yeah, that's Biden's budget. Biden's budget. Yep.
And then shutdown. But the Democrats are trying, because they lost an election, they have no control, to leverage this to get their pet projects funded. Things like LGBTQ education in Uganda, things like we've already mentioned health care for illegal aliens and dead people on Social Security, things like that. They're trying to get this spending in. And I meant to try to get a list of some of the big ones, but I never got around to it. But here, from their own mouth, you don't have to take our word for it. Watch this.
This is our only moment of leverage, and although a very unpleasant tool to use.
Why not take that route?
I think the idea that you would give up all of your leverage and then hopefully get some sort of great deal coming down the pike is just a fool's errand.
I mean, shutdowns are terrible. And of course, there will be, families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility very seriously. But it is one of the few leverage times we have.
So I don't know why they cut that off, but they are totally ignoring the fact, just as I mentioned a minute ago, that the country voted in this administration and the ideas that were approved in the big, beautiful bill. Some of the ideas. I didn't like everything in that. And they voted in the legislature. This is what the majority of the voters in the United States wanted. And this is the party who continues to talk about, oh, we got to save democracy. Well, I mean, we're a constitutional republic. You know that's a pet peeve of mine. But using their own verbiage, their own rhetoric, they're not abiding by democracy by keeping this shutdown going.
So John said Social Security is not tied to the government budget. It's a totally separate pot of money. You're absolutely right. And
It's
I understand
supposed
that.
to be.
But also,
Supposed to
also this negotiation or this hostage taking by the Democrats isn't just about the current shutdown. It's a long-term play, and they're looking for concessions to be able to impact parts of counteracting parts of the big beautiful bill. Not just the budget. So there's other things involved.
Sure. Well, but they've robbed Social Security in the past. They want to be able to do that again. And if there's a slush fund of dead people who's getting money, and then, I mean, before we came back to the podcast, wasn't there something? And I don't want to speak out of turn, and I don't want to cause any speculation. I even hate to say this out loud, but weren't there were like dead people in one house getting a check, and that some of the members of Congress were actually getting some of those Social Security checks?
Well, I don't know specifically about members of Congress, but there absolutely were people who had
Or
passed away.
maybe it was state governments.
People had passed away and were still getting Social Security checks because the system is so inefficient. Don't know that was necessarily fraud. It's not like they are pulled up, grave markers and started sending people checks. It's people who have died and are continuing to get the checks.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's cashing them, the family or whatever, but if they had a power of attorney towards their end of life and they were using that money's still coming in.
Yeah.
So cleaning up those kind of things is a part of it. There's definitely some fraud too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's fraud, waste, and inefficiency. It's all those things together.
Well, and that's part of what the big, beautiful bill was supposed to do. And it was what Trump ran on, and Congress passed it. And now the Democrats think they own the ball, and they're trying to take it and go home. That's what's going on with this. They're taking the ball and going home. Now, you and I were talking earlier today, and you mentioned a couple other things that they were wanting in this bill outside of just the health care. There was, what were you telling me earlier today, Dan, about that? Do you remember? Am I putting you on the spot, buddy?
Well, I'm pretty sure we talked about it, but right now the Democrats are refusing to negotiate because they want to keep the COVID subsidies, which we talked about earlier, going.
Right.
And they also want there's an agenda in there that's tied to the open borders policy that they've been running while they were in office. So the things that they want funded will lessen the impact of the work that Trump and ICE, et cetera, have been doing. So there's loopholes in what their counter proposal has loopholes, which expands healthcare to illegals. We talked about that, and housing for migrants. So there's funding for housing for migrants because listen, ICE hasn't deported everybody, and they're not going to.
No, that's what Alcatraz was about, was to take them down there and vet them and arrange transportation for that matter. That's part of it. So
there's some, I don't know if you want to get into this, but just some clarity about what's open and what's not open right now. You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So just so everybody knows, the government isn't completely closed. Obviously, our congressmen are still going to work. They're still getting paid because they're not a part of this budget. So the Social Security Administration and everybody's still getting their Social Security checks. There's some clerical people that are non-essential that have been furloughed, which may make some process, especially new claims, etc., be a little bit slower, but it's not closed. Medicare, Medicaid, everybody's still getting their benefits and their claims. Department of Veterans Affairs is still open. So healthcare, disability, pension benefits, GI Bill, burials for military, the whole 9 yards, all that stuff is still going. The U.S. Postal Service is still running. You all know you're still getting your mail. That's operating normally because it's not funded by an annual congressional appropriation.
Well, they're supposed to be self-sufficient. The U.S.
But
Postal
they're not.
Service.
They're not.
They're not very self-sufficient or efficient, for that matter.
Yeah, and you can still fly.
Sure.
So air traffic control, TSA, everybody's doing the usual. You may have some behind-the-scenes cuts, which may make your security line a little bit longer.
Right.
However, you're still going through and getting on planes safely. So trade still happen. The Border Patrol still working. We're still collecting tariffs from foreign countries. All those things are happening. The Department of State is still working. We're still giving out and passports and visas. All that stuff is still going on. U.S. citizen and immigrant services are fee funded for the most part, so they're still going on. Military operations are all still going on.
Yeah, I heard them doing maneuvers earlier today. So
yeah, the Department of Defense is still working. All right, there's some all active duty military personnel are still working and getting paid. The civilian employees, so those government contractors, a lot of them are furloughed. There's some secondary military that aren't active duty involved in essential security of the country that are still working, but they're not getting paid.
right.
There's some military people that are working and they're not getting paid, but whenever we've had a shutdown, they've always gotten their money. Now that's tough for somebody who's
once they
living,
open up, they get back pay.
listen, I'm not without sympathy. It's tough for people that are living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of military people are. So it's tough for them. USAA does help a little bit, from what I'm told.
Right.
So there's some help for them.
I think All In Credit Union, they sent out and Truist, for that matter, sent out emails saying, hey, if you're having a hard time due to government shutdowns, let us know. You can apply for a short-term loan. You know, they're doing those kind of things to help. And, you know, food banks are kicking up. They're getting ready for this SNAP stuff. I saw something today, and I wasn't able to verify whether it was accurate or not, that Walmart was actually going to be shutting their doors, and you could only order online and pick up. It would bring it out of the car. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is accurate. This may have been some AI meme, something like that. But they are really concerned about, because people have, there's a whole TikTok war going on these SNAP benefit things. And people are saying, well, if you see me stealing a pack of hamburger meat, keep your mouth shut because of my SNAP ain't going. Well, you know what? There are.
I don't know if you're physically able to go in and steal a pack of hamburger, you should be able to work.
Accurate. We're sitting out here in one of the richest areas in the state of Florida, not the richest, but in a wealthy area for the most part. You and I are unfortunately not part of that wealthy part yet. But
we're working on it.
We have a food bank within 6 miles of the house.
Yeah.
We're right there on 331, south of the bridge, south of the parking lot, the dirt Oak Grove parking lot. There's a church that has a food bank every weekend where you can go by and pick up food if you're in need.
Well, and just so you know, the IRS is still working.
Oh yeah, John. Yeah, they're still collecting taxes, brother.
Of course. Again, some of these agencies are running a little thin, which is not a bad thing for the IRS.
Not a bad thing for the IRS. I think what we should do is probably just go ahead and shut down the IRS, and call it a day.
See how it goes.
Yeah.
Shut it down, see how it goes. See if we can live without it.
Right? Let's say, yeah, let's just give it a test trial for about a year or two.
Sometimes you just need to take the Band-Aid off. I mean, come on.
You do, man. You do. And that's, but they are you listen to the rhetoric from the left right now, and they are threatening, your Thanksgiving's travel is going to be, I mean, you can't force the government to vote any harder than yes on 15 attempts to go it up. Now, if you walk in and saying, well, if I don't get my way, I'm not going to vote with you, you're the one that's keeping things from happening. You're keeping it from going. So
yes.
That being said, guys, we are about to show you something that's going to blow your mind. I don't want to oversell it, but if you ever look around, I mentioned this in the intro, if you look around you in our society, in our culture, in our political environment, and you're like, man, how is this even occurring? How is this even happening? Why are they believing that? Why can't I find accurate information or real news? Or why does this guy believe this? I don't know if you've heard of the guy. His name is Yuri Bezmenov. He's a former KGB propagandist who specialized in psychological warfare and media manipulation during the Cold War. He defected to the West in 1970, initially in Canada, and then he moved to the U.S. He was stationed in India, and he and his wife had a young child, and he was actually scared for their safety. That was the primary reason he defected. Now, he was one of the masterminds in what they did from a psychological standpoint. And his warnings about ideological subversion became a cornerstone of modern discussions on foreign influence and cultural destabilization. Now, Dan and I were talking about this earlier. Our own government actually uses these tactics in other lands and other places.
Yeah.
But what he did is he came up with basically 4 stages of ideological I call it the destabilizing of a society or a government. And once we get into this, you're going to say, oh my gosh.
Ideological subversion.
Yeah, it's called ideological subversion, but it also destabilizes a society. That's how I was trying to use different words, Dan. But I mean, in essence, that's what this plan does. So let's jump right into it. It is the 4 stages of ideological subversion. Let's get into stage 1. Demoralization. Now, basically, what Yuri says that they did this, and he's passed on now, was they would go and rather than invade a country, this Soviet Union, by the way, rather than invade a country, they would place operatives who would create a long-term change in a society and basically destabilize it. So the goal of demoralization is corrupt the moral and intellectual foundations of a target nation. Says it takes 15 to 20 years, roughly 1 generation. Now, I'm going to remind you of something I've often said on this podcast in a minute. The way you do this is you infiltrate media, education, and culture. Now, you've probably heard me say right here on this podcast in the past that the Democrats have been playing the long game. They control education. They control the media. They controlled the narrative until recently, just recently. So they normalize cynicism, moral relativism. Does that sound familiar? We've talked about that over the last few weeks, and self-loathing. They make patriotism and traditional values seem outdated or oppressive. You flood society with conflicting information, so truth becomes subjective and people tune out. So the goal of this first stage is by the end, people lose faith in their institutions, their leaders, and even the ideas of truth itself. You're questioning truth. What is true? What is not true? You don't need tanks when citizens don't believe in anything worth defending. Dan, you got any comments on that, brother?
Yeah, so some signs to look for with this, and these will make your hairs on your neck stand up. Cynicism about actual facts, hostility to religion, family, and patriotism, inability to process contrary evidence. So if you think about that, what is the war we've been fighting? Some of us on social media, us doing the podcast, etc., that you would have conversations with people where you're like, how do you even think like this? Like literally, the words coming out of your mouth are the opposite of reality, because this part has already been done or is in the process of being done.
I think we're in stage 3, but go ahead.
Well, I'm sure it's a continuing process. I think it takes the timeline is like 15 to 20 years, but I think that's where it ends up being more of the normality of society, the new normal, so to speak, of society. And I think we're in that. So we might be 20 years in it, we might be 30 years into it, but this part doesn't change; it continues.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. You're continually demoralizing it. It helps you basically control a population through confusion, is what it and some subversion. Hey,
Rewiring people's brains. It rewires an entire generation or two of their values. So, the things we believe is truth, tradition, confidence in our nation, all pretty much seem pointless.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, people get mad at others for actually brandishing an American flag. I mean,
It's
we don't
crazy.
see that here in Florida, but in other parts of the country, I literally saw a TikTok last week where a woman called a guy racist because he had an American flag on his hat. He didn't have a MAGA hat on. He didn't say he was a Republican, but a lady was calling him racist because he was brandishing a red, white, and blue. Thank you, Josette. Be sure to stick around. There's more to this. It gets even deeper. By the way, thanks everybody for watching so far. Please share the podcast. It doesn't cost you a thing to do that. Like and comment and join the conversation. Well, as we can, we'll read them and we'll even put them on the screen as we go. So let's get into stage 2. So that's the demoralization. That takes roughly 15 to 20 years. Stage 2 is destabilization. It's basically a 2 to 5 year time frame, and the goal is to undermine the pillars of stability through economy, through defense, through foreign relations. You stir up polarization amongst a society between social, racial, and economic groups. You erode the trust in law enforcement. Does that sound familiar? And the justice system. You sabotage business confidence. Evil corporations, right? Energy independence and national security. The public becomes too divided to agree on what's real, much less what's right. The perfect setup for chaos. Dan, what you got?
We are here. We are here. Everything you just read is what happens pretty much in every day of our life. So our core systems, the things we believe in that are the pillars of the Constitution, the pillars of our republic. I almost said democracy because they're brainwashing me too. Pillars of our republic are being torn down or what's the word? Devalued.
Devalued. Yes, that's a good word, Dan.
Devalued, and so that so that people don't believe in them anymore. And especially with new generations. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of these companies where you've got people who are a generation or two into the adult work world. And those are the people that are, the 30-something millennials that are running these corporations that are completely rewiring and changing the way they operate.
Yeah, they're changing the culture to a degree that it's not outcome based, it's not merit based. It's based on other things that aren't very productive, unfortunately.
Yep.
And yeah, I think we should have equity and opportunity, but equity and outcome is something that is unobtainable. You can't take you and I in our prime, because you are a running back and I played a little linebacker, and put us beside each other and expect me to beat you in a race. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that equity of out, no matter what, how how flat the footing is on the track, no matter what, there's nothing you can do to change the outcome of that race unless I figure out some weird way to become faster. And it should, like strapping a jetpack to my ass and whatever. So
another thing that happens with this is the polarization gets so bad that you have violence on the street. And what did we see happen since 2020?
Well, I mean, erode of trust in law enforcement.
Yep.
Defund the police. That's very recent.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last 3 years.
And look what's
Steve brings up
happening now
is like once this little step happens, it's difficult to get back because it becomes the norm.
And look what's happening now with the issues in the big cities where ICE is there and potentially the National Guard to stop crime. There's violence on the streets, complete violence, and then the public discourse from the morons out there is that it's Trump's fault, it's ICE's fault when somebody throws a freaking brick through the windshield of a ICE car. I don't understand the thought process, but then we're talking about these people have been 15 to 20 years of being conditioned, so their brains don't work right.
Right. Sonia Elliott just posted a YouTube. We can't watch that right now. Sonia.
I'll refer back to it.
We'll check it out a little later. Hopefully it's not some spam of some sort. So let's get on to stage 3, which is where I actually think we are right now, if I'm being honest. Crisis. This takes weeks, sometimes days, a tipping point, political, economic, or cultural collapse. You spark a revolution, coup, or a national emergency. Exploit panic to push a radical change in leadership or structure. Promise order to reform to a population that's too exhausted to resist. People beg for solutions from the same groups that engineered the problems. Now, we're not quite in revolution. We're not quite in coup. And I actually think Charlie Kirk's murder slowed a lot of this down, but some of this other stuff.
And Trump winning the election also.
It also slowed it down and helped. But people are still begging government, who created the majority of these problems, for a solution.
Well, I think we're in the middle of this, but we're it seems to be like I don't know if the right word is holding it off, but this part is not fully there yet. So I think if whoever, Biden or Kamala or whoever ended up, if they would have won that election, I think by the end of their term, we'd probably be in this cycle right here.
Sure, absolutely.
Also, the coup's already happened, or at least attempted twice now. Where it's a soft coup behind the scenes. I think in some of this, a coup is a coup, whether it's done without violence or with violence. It's still a coup. You're taking over the government by, destroying the election process, undermining free and fair elections with the tools that the far left is used. And hopefully, I don't know. I mean, have you heard of long-term plans to correct the election issue, or was it Trump was able to hold them off because they were Johnny on the spot in these swing states on election day with lawyers and people to keep them from doing that crap?
I think that was the only way to do it. I think passing the discussions of passing a national ID to vote, Yeah, I agree, Gordon. I was going to get to that point in a minute that COVID was the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't quite land like they wanted it to, but COVID was definitely the crisis. And John Nash, do me a favor in the comments. Explain what you mean that those are the far left people, because this whole thing is not necessarily left or right. It's just the fact that these things are present. That's what this is about. Well, it's all a manufactured crisis, dude. I mean, that's the idea behind this subversion techniques, is to manufacture a crisis or create a perception of crisis. So, I had a point I was going to make, and I got tied up looking at the comments like I do sometimes. But that's why we want you guys commenting, because you help steer the conversation. And if you haven't shared the podcast yet, right now is a good time to do that. Get other folks to join in. And, it doesn't cost you a dime to do that. But in stage 3 right now, the idea is they're attempting to spark a revolution. They attempt to impeach, which is remove a leader. They attempted to have him arrested because they feared he would be reelected. Hey, we got a Rumble comment. Thanks, Joseph. Awesome. Which that gives me that makes me want to say this. All of the live streams on Facebook are deleted after 30 days. So if you want to watch some of the older shows, you can go follow us on Rumble or YouTube, as they stay up there infinitum. So we delete them, or we get kicked off of those. Let's get into stage 4. Normalization. So this is indefinite. You cement the new power structure and suppress dissent. Replace former institutions with loyal bureaucracies. Control media narratives and rewrite history. Label opposition as extremist or anti-progress. The cycle completes when citizens not only accept their new reality, but forget there was ever another one. I think we can look at the tearing down of Civil War statues, changing of base names, as an attempt to create a new normal in the previous administration. I think fortunately for us, they got their cart a little ahead of the horse. So it was slightly more difficult for them to pull that off. And we're very fortunate that they didn't.
Well, I think there's some people, some key political leaders who understand this entire process and have done some things, whether it's publicly or behind the scenes, to try to slow this down.
Right.
And I mean, that's why we elect them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, literally, that should be their job.
That's our main recourse, is to put people in office that we want to help keep us a free society. So how do we recognize this stuff? Dan sent me a few ideas that he put together. How do we recognize this and combat it? So here are some red flags that Dan put together. I'll let him explain that.
All right. So some red flags that you can spot in the wild, so to speak. So claims cannot survive a simple show me your primary source. We've talked about that a lot. Like when you see something that you're like, wow, that seems crazy. Usually it's taken out of context. So you can go back and find the original source. And if you go find the original source and proves that's false, you can see that what they're doing. And that's happening all day, every day, from every media outlet, both sides of the aisle. This is a constant bombardment that's happening. So you got emotional spikes without actionable specifics. So people are pissed off.
Sure.
And they don't know why. You showed the video of the lady last week out there protesting, and she has no clue why she's protesting. No clue. Yeah, Gordon, find people on those sites. There's 100, 1,000, 1 million examples. But yeah, you're 100% right. So every time their narrative is upended. They move the goalposts. So the rules change, the dynamic changes, the explanation changes.
Well, it's a straw man fallacy that that a lot of people use in arguments anyway. And,
Yep.
you know, either they move the goalposts or they use the whataboutisms. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. And then you got the experts that never actually show real data to prove their findings.
Yeah.
The expert class, and this has been going on for a long time too, is we just like this is somebody put the COVID thing up there. This was what happened in COVID. Just trust the science.
Yeah.
Like there's no proof that it works, but then everybody became an enemy who didn't want to go along with that narrative.
Was it, were we talking about that? I think we talked about this when Gordon was actually on the show. There was a guy, he's a social scientist, a sociologist out in out northeast, the Pacific Northwest somewhere, who was reading all this gender ideology stuff. And he's like, this is the stupidest stuff I've ever seen. And he wrote a fake study, fake paper, straight from scratch, just complete and utter fiction. And he presented it to his peers because, you know, when you're in academia and you do things like that, the way you get legitimized and the way you get grants and the way you get tenure and all of that is you get legitimized by your peers. And it was a peer review. They did this study, then they had their peers review it, and they signed off of it and gave them awards. But it was complete and utter BS. So that tells you that, and the fact that 9 out of 10 scientists agree because that's who pays their income.
Yeah.
You know, Crest is not the most popular, or AIM or whatever. What is AIM even still a toothpaste? Colgate is they pay those dentists to do that study.
Sure.
And they can't say 10 out of 10 agree, because then you start questioning it. And I'm not saying I use Colgate, so it's good stuff. But
so here's another one that we went through and seems to be turning in the right direction, is the platforms are throttling one side and boosting another. So you saw that before Elon bought Twitter. We're back. I think YouTube kind of went back and
they got sued. They were sued and they were forced. And that's the free market at work, ladies and gentlemen. That's how the free market's supposed to work. Hey, I'm gonna move you. 9 out of 10 doctors prefer Camel cigarettes. That's accurate. I'm gonna move you on to the next slide. I got to check on a dog. I'll be right back.
All right.
So you talk about it.
So ask what would prove this wrong before you share it. So this is a big thing that happens on social media, is that they create salacious headlines. You see the headline and you immediately share the article. And then a lot of times, and I've done this myself, I'm guilty of it. We're all short on time. But when you actually go and dig into those articles, usually you can find somewhere in it where, and it's usually buried in the back third or back quarter of the article, where it actually debunks the headline. So the headline is written to create an emotional reaction. And then when you actually go and do the research on it, it's 100% false. So make sure that you try to do that work before you share. It's basically propaganda. So separate reporting from framing verbs and adjectives. This is a big part of how these people write these articles. It's a part of the evening news. These things are meant to sensationalize. There's not facts in a lot of this stuff, because facts are boring. They don't drive ratings. They don't produce clicks. So you need to make sure that you understand the difference between factual reporting and things that are meant to frame it in a certain direction. That's what they're doing. Track original sources. This is the big thing. I've talked about this a lot. I talk about it with my kids. I talk about it with people that I have conversations with that I actually have some influence over, which sometimes is my kids. Always try to find the original source. So if they said that, Trump said XYZ and everybody's up in arms about it, if it was done at a press conference, go watch the press conference, read the transcript, listen to the audio, whichever it was, and you can actually find that information in context. And almost every time it's 100% false what they're asserting. And the people who can actually admit they're wrong and correct themselves in public when they make a mistake. So if you share an article and it's got false information and you go back in and say, hey guys, this is fake or whatever, or it's not just us. We're talking about people who are influencers, people who are in the media. When somebody can go and admit they're wrong and go correct it on air live, admit their mistake, those are people that should earn your trust.
Absolutely, they should. I mean, you think about it. I think we discussed this last week. One of the hardest things on this planet to do is admit when you're wrong. Nobody likes to be wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're a politician and you're wrong, you get bashed mercilessly. So we're taught to not show that weakness in public. We should be more accepting of that.
I don't know why. I don't possess that gene. I mean, if I make a mistake, I was a Democrat my whole life. I made a mistake. I fully owned up to that mistake.
Well, we're glad you saw the light, man.
I don't know. Maybe it's as soon as you get past that internal embarrassment that you're feeling shame because you screwed something up. Once you get past that, and that becomes a part of your normal thought process. Hey, we're not perfect. No one's perfect. We all make mistakes. So when you admit those mistakes, it actually makes you more trustworthy, and those are the people that you should surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
Get information from.
We shouldn't place people in media or in political office on a pedestal to such a degree that we think they're infallible, because when they do mess up, we double down on our support for them when we should really be calling them out. That's one of the things. A lot of people got mad at us because of some of the things we've like Trump have played a big part in the COVID shutdowns. I mean, it was his last year in office.
Yeah.
He printed a lot of money. He didn't print as much as Biden did, but he shares some responsibility. And people were like, oh, no, Trump, blah, 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 blah. No, you go back, look at the record and just admit that. It's just like when I get in these, I said a few weeks ago, I've been trying to avoid Facebook political arguments, but when I haven't, I apologize for saying that I would, and I haven't. But when people say, well, release the Epstein list. I mean, like, yeah, let's do that. Let's really, and we released everything that's public record last week, and barely anybody wanted to hear it. So we're all in favor of that. When you mess up, you should admit it. You be man or woman enough. Notice that I only use two genders to do that. And
that's the truth.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. and move on. So, you know what? I screwed up. My bad. Let's I apologize. You have corrected me and I've seen the light on that particular mistake. Now let's move on. Speaking of moving on, let's talk a little bit about schools and culture, Dan.
So if you have people that graduated and they can't handle opposing ideas, then the part we talked about earlier, the demoralization's worked. So we're there. So we have people that have graduated college that cannot handle opposing ideas. Yeah. They've been brainwashed in those institutions that you can't argue with them. It's like banging your head against the wall. You can't convince them the sky is blue. No matter what happens, they've been taught the sky is red and it will never change. And then the other part is when institutions reward activism over competence, destabilization is underway. And we're definitely there. Definitely there.
No doubt. No doubt.
Just look at Black Lives Matter, what that did.
And they're still, they're still
institutions
supporting that out in Portland and in other parts in Seattle. I follow a page, and I know we're trying to refrain from cussing, but I'm using this in a title. I follow a Facebook page called Seattle is Shit. And it's basically locals in Seattle posting pictures and video of all the crap that's going on as a result of their inept government allowing it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All the protests, all of the, Molotov cocktails, homeless people living in the street, Antifa doing things in the street, defecating in the street, stuff like that. I don't follow it closely.
But look how much just and Black Lives Matter is just one example. Look at how much that affected how institutions operated. It changed pro franchises, how they operated.
Sure.
It changed the media. It changed education. They came up with alternative curriculum to justify it and to make it real.
Oh, side note, this is kind of has a little bit to do with this. The NFL announced today that they would have a second headliner in their halftime show, and it's going to be Sting.
I don't know.
Thanks, Gordon, who is not an American, but it's cool.
I don't know why
everybody likes
your halftime show isn't centered around America's game. I mean, you got your headliner is somebody who doesn't speak English.
Right. But Puerto Rico is an American possession. It is part of the United States. So, while he doesn't speak English, it is a territory of the United States. So it's not like he's an immigrant or anything like that. I've seen people bash him for that, and that's not a legitimate bashing. You bash him because he got on SNL and said you need to learn Spanish before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's BS. Sorry, I'm not allowed to swear.
Absolutely. And the fact that they, all of these political statements in the end zones in the NFL and all of that. I know I agreed to join the fantasy league, but I hadn't watched a single NFL game all year, and I haven't kept up with any news. And my record reflects that. My fantasy record reflects that.
All right, so the next section is government telltale. So some of this is real. It's happening. So permanent emergencies. So even though the COVID emergency, the immediate health emergency has kind of died down, a lot of the underlying policies that were implemented are still in place.
Right.
The agencies always expand mandates without new laws. You look at the ATF, what they try to do with the length of barrel on AR-15s.
Mm-hmm.
There's always an issue. The EPA is famous for doing it. They won't allow you to have a lake in your backyard. They'll find the shit out of you and take your property.
Yep.
Those are not laws. Temporary rules that never sunset. That pretty much almost every change that our government makes doesn't sunset.
No.
We're on a government shutdown because a bunch of our politicians want to keep the funding up that was raised for COVID. An emergency that was nowhere near as big as they made it out to be. And yet we're still funding the government at those levels. And they're fighting over it. Puppies. So Wes has jumped off to take care of his dogs, but we're not moving the slides forward, but I'm going to move. So there's corporate telltales. So the next slide, Wes. Corporate telltales, risk teams dictating speech codes. That's real. Okay, so
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you are. I mean, and look, I'm not for sexual harassment, but I am going to use that as an example where they started dictating what you could or could not say in a workplace, rather than allowing somebody being sexually harassed to just punch him in the throat. You know, granted that behavior shouldn't be there, and that should not be leveraged for somebody's job or promotion or anything like that. But that's
but it's also weaponized too.
Oh yeah,
it's
has
also been weaponized to hurt people who aren't necessarily guilty either, because you put that structure in place.
Sorry, Joe said I didn't mean to make that truth look like it was you were, backing up what I was saying. I just saw it and put it up there. But I'm going to use it going forward quite often. So
the next one is ESG style checklist uses leverage on policy rather than on performance. I think this would have been much bigger if DeSantis did a lot to stop this in our state.
Yes.
Put laws in place that would not allow it in the state of Florida. And we've got a pretty damn big economy here in Florida.
Right.
So you have some large corporations that couldn't do that in our area. So we've kind of stopped a little bit of that, but they changed tactics, and now that stuff is not as overt as it used to be. It's now subversive. It's still in there. And it's companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, those big companies that own massive amounts of everything. They run our retirements. They run our portfolios left and right. They're buying up property all over, residential property all over the country. Those people are the ones who are involved in this ESG thing. So, right. And also major corporations, which goes back to some of the other things we talk about, where these ideologist people are now running corporations.
Ideologues
are running corporations. So the brainwashing that they undertook is now steering. They're using that to steer the direction of their companies, and that's a part of this ESG, where you're changing your policies. You're leveraging those things as opposed to actual performance. Remember the whole stakeholder versus stakeholder versus stake owner. What's the other part? The shareholder versus
stakeholder. Yes.
Yeah. So they changed tried to change the climate of corporate America, where it was no longer about profit and doing a good job. It was about the stakeholders, and your corporation is having an impact on culture and society, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
All that's out there. There's a lot of telltale signs out there that are you can see in everyday life.
Sure. Fortunately, I think, it's kind of funny, the memes going around when you see certain things lately. The world is healing. And I think a lot of people, thanks to, we talk about Charlie Kirk every week since we come back, but we absolutely should. And his passing woke a lot of people up.
Yeah.
But they're still using violent rhetoric,
My wife, who's the most non-political person you'll meet, wants a Charlie Kirk shirt for Christmas.
Nice. You're getting off cheap there, Dan.
Yeah. Well, that's not all. That's just.
Oh, that's one of the things.
Yeah.
But then, you got advertising pulling strings in newsrooms and on creators. We've seen that on both sides of the aisle. But
advertisers rule the world. Turn on the TV. What do you see? Pharmaceutical ads left and right. You think they're not pulling strings in newsrooms? You think?
Oh, absolutely.
Pfizer. You think the Pfizer getting a bad rap with trying to keep their COVID vaccine information under wraps for 75 years? You don't think I
got to let Mr. Wellington out. I'll be right back.
Go ahead. All right. So now we got tech telltales. Algorithmic outrage loops that keep you mad and scrolling. This is reality. So if you get stuck, they call it doom scrolling, I guess. So, and it's hard to not do. So they're so sophisticated about that. If you watch a video in a regular Facebook or an Instagram feed, and then you scroll up from that video, they continue to just feed you videos, and you'll sit there for hours and hours and hours. And the algorithm is what's feeding you what they think you want to see or what you're interested in. And a lot of that stuff is influencing outrage of people. You're not getting the other side of the story when you see, for example, there's a lot of violent reels out there where you'll see a group of African American people beating the shit out of a white person.
Yeah.
And they just keep feeding you this. So you look at it and you're like, holy shit. Yeah. This is going on. How can this be happening this much? And in reality, it's a very small amount, but you're fed that with an algorithm.
The volume of it makes
that's reality.
It makes you think that it's happening everywhere you go.
Yeah. And when you go to Walmart and it's not happening, you're like, well, it's not happening here. We must be okay.
Like, man, I came to film a fight. What happened? Yeah. Speaking of which, Black Friday's coming up, so be sure to turn your phone this way when you're filming the riot instead of this way for all of us, so we don't miss anything.
Yeah, because we're all on widescreen TVs.
Yeah, that way we can see it on YouTube or wherever.
So safety labels used to throttle politics rather than actual harm. This happens a lot, where you see an image is hidden.
Yeah.
And then you click on the image and there's no violence whatsoever. It's a freaking, it's a Republican giving a speech.
Look, you can see this on YouTube, man. You can go watch. You can go on YouTube and watch any video. Like, I watch a lot of these true crime things. I just enjoy that stuff, these mystery things. And the R word and sexual assault, which we're probably about to get banned from YouTube for using that. The R word that refers to SA, they don't say the R word.
Ape,
yeah. They say something else. They don't say SA, sexual assault. They don't say that. They don't use the word. They say unalived instead of the K word. And you see this where they're dictating speech in the speech we use. Now, we're a smart species, so we find ways around that to use words that mean the same exact thing, so you get your point across.
Yeah.
But they are changing
the
speech that we're used via the algorithm.
Yep, you got to trick the algorithm.
Yeah.
Because they're stopping free speech. So the last one on there is the sock puppet networks coordinating across platforms. I know we've shown it at least twice, where we've had montages where we just lay local news broadcasts on top of each other, where they're saying the exact same thing. You also see Democrats who are doing public appearance or making speeches using the exact same verbiage on everyone. So, I mean, that's obviously happened. So the telltale signs are there. They're 100% there. So you're like, all right, this is doom, gloom, and doom. We're already here. Bezmenov was right. It's happening in America. Oh my God, what do we do? Well, there's some practical things you can do.
Well, this is the last slide that I included, by the way.
Well, I've got
you just lay it out there, and I'm
some commentary.
Throw our heads up here like this.
So practical counter. So listen, everything we've talked about it multiple times. Local, your trust, your demand for honesty, your demand for these things not happening needs to start local.
Sure.
Right. Whether your school, it needs to be your school boards, your city budgets, depending on what kind of government is operating your area. The sheriff needs to be held accountable in these. And then when you have district attorney races in your area or your state, depending on, again, how your government's structured, you need to make sure that those people in those positions are not a part of this crap.
Right.
You do that and you will help yourself significantly, because those are the things that are affecting your everyday life much more than what Donald Trump says or what Nancy Pelosi says or Chuck Schumer. The things that happen here at the local level are the things that affect you the most, and they need to be the people that are on the up and up. So focus your energy there. So build redundancy. So independent media, which we're part of, and I think there's a lot of independent media out there that is getting big. Continue to support those outlets. You need parallel platforms so that you can't get stopped by different pay structures. When PayPal won't do this because of your political affiliation, there needs to be an alternative. So
and there are some,
yes.
and we actually still have our Mammoth Nation affiliation, and we haven't been promoting that. So we need to do that. I need to get that link, and I will share that, where you can actually go. Mammoth Nation is kind of a competitor to like an Amazon or another shopping, and it's all conservative vendors. Everybody that sells on that site are conservatives. It's everything from wine to liquor of the month clubs to ballet slippers, anything you could think of. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So another big thing is if you have influence over young people, so you're a parent, you're a teacher, you're a coach, anybody who has an influence over young people, you need to teach kids logic, critical thinking, source checking, and regular everyday life skills.
Absolutely.
Like they need to be able to do things on their own so that they're prepared. They're not a dependent of the government when they get out from under your dependency as a parent.
One of the questions I'm using myself when I'm running into somebody who disagrees with me ideologically or makes a bold statement about something that I question, the first thing I say is, how do you know that's true?
You say that to me. You've said
I
that
do.
to me multiple
I
times.
absolutely do. And I say that to a lot of people. I'm like, well, and I don't know, maybe it's the political science education that I rarely use, except when we sit here and talk about historical things.
Well, I think you use it a lot more than
I probably do. I was very fortunate to go to school at a time where critical thinking was still something that, even from my I had a literal communist professor who appreciated when you made a sound argument, even if he didn't agree with it.
It used to be you couldn't literally survive if you didn't possess critical thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I asked that question. And then if they say, well, I heard it, I saw it on the news. My next question is, how do you personally know that to be true? And Dan, you pulled this the other day. You asked a guy if he actually met Trump. Have you met him? And
the guy was like, I hate every ounce of Trump. I hate him. I hate him.
Every single ounce of it. Yes. Yeah. Which is funny because he said that after you said you got TDS. And that's literally the description of TDS.
Yeah. I hate a person I've never met. I hate the version the media has put in front of you is what you hate.
And another thing to do, and I'm talking about personal interactions, and these are things we should be teaching our kids, even though as parents, sometimes this can cause issues for us if we don't want to be hypocritical and the old because I said so. That's always been kind of a last statement in our household with our daughter. We want to give reasons as to why we're making these decisions on their behalf or telling them no for some reason. We want them to be able to understand that. We've also always wanted to encourage our daughter to ask why. Why is it necessary for me to do this? Why is this necessary? But I always ask, this is a third question I've started asking recently that I haven't done in years, is what assumptions are you making in that conclusion that would lead you to believe what you believe? Because if somebody's making assumptions, they're filling in data gaps, they're filling in information gaps that would actually, that could be false assumptions.
Usually it's just to affirm
Yes.
the premise of what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can,
Even though they may not be true.
And sometimes those assumptions can be realistic and natural and make sense and be logical. But, you know, a lot of times, sometimes those assumptions are if then statements, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, and I'm going to point back to my time back when I was in the corporate insurance world. There was one, for a very short period of time, your car, if you smoked, your car insurance would cost you a little bit more, because preliminary studies with assumptions were that just because you smoked, you were more prone to accidents. But we realized that that wasn't a causal component eventually to more accidents. Those were all, it just so happened that those people involved in those accidents were smokers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So causation does not always mean correlation, and vice versa. And a lot of times we can make assumptions that seem logical. Well, you know, statistically speaking, it's always been a running joke that women are worse drivers than men. That's not statistically true, though. So, but it's just been that assumption. The argument to that is, another assumption is that men drive a lot more than women. So statistically speaking, men will, just by the law of large numbers, have more accidents than women. So I've seen that debated in an underwriting meeting in insurance, and it go back and forth without a conclusion, but there were assumptions made on both sides. There were logical assumptions, but nothing was even proven. So we have to be deeper thinkers, and I think that's where you were going with that when I rudely interrupted you.
Nope, that's all right. You added to the conversation.
Well, that's kind of what we're supposed to do here, right?
Yes, 100%. So the last point I want to make on this subject, in practical counters to where we can right the ship and move it in a different direction than what Yuri Bezmenov told us was happening, which we all know for sure is happening, is demand transparency. You demand transparency in your government, in the platforms that you interact with, and in any NGOs, because NGO is just of freaking something they created in order for the government to fund something, is really
Right.
why NGOs
And
are
to skate other
That's
ideas.
the funding.
Right. It's to bypass some of the bureaucracy is what it is.
Yep. And the one thing that you can think about with, as far as transparency, is if the process, whichever it is, when you're talking about the government, you're talking about rules, you're talking about platforms, etc. If the process is opaque, the outcome is riggable.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can't see the process, it's blocked. Opaque means you can kind of see a shadow of it.
Right.
It's riggable. That means they can determine the outcome.
Absolutely. If I mean, that just goes to make sense. If it's not a transparent process, we're talking about reasonable assumptions. You would just assume it's rigged until proven otherwise. That's a safe assumption.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like the magician on stage. I'm not going to believe he's actually magic because I can't see everything he's doing.
The other thing to keep in mind is we have to get away from this mentality of left versus right. And I know we're guilty of that. We feed into it. It's a part of a lot of the things we talk about. This is not a left versus right thing. This is a top versus bottom thing.
Right.
So this is the elites, the people, call it what you want, the people in power versus the people who are affected by their power.
Right.
It's top versus bottom, not left versus right.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I don't know, Dan. I think we're in the crisis, getting ready to go into normalization. depending
Well,
on how long the shutdown
stop
goes.
fighting, man. We can't stop fighting or
No, I'm not giving up on the fight. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if we are in crisis, then we need to make sure that we are a part of ensuring that the new normal, the normalization phase, doesn't work to that level.
I got to tell you, when we first talked about doing this as a part of it, you had the impression that I was not excited about it.
Right.
I honestly think this is maybe one of the most important casts that we've ever done.
I think it is.
This outlines everything that's happening to us. We've also we've laid it out for everybody in easy to use terms, things that you can see through everyday life, and we've also given some practical ways in which we can turn the tide.
Yeah,
this is a very important show, I believe.
But I think so too. But we're basically pulling the curtain back on the wizard a little bit and saying, all right, this is the levers and the things he's pulling to make this happen. And it's all done with purpose, even though it all seems scattered. It seems like turmoil and confusion. It's confusion. It's intended confusion. And if what the first part is understanding that.
Yeah.
And if you can understand that and you can see the buttons being pushed and the levers being pulled, you know what's up. And you can call that out when you see it. And like we said, when we've come back, part of our small mission here is to empower our viewers and listeners to be smarter and more astute ideologically and politically, and being able to cognitively make a point that hits logically and has an opportunity to sway others in a positive way.
Yep.
So
I agree. Your analogy with what you were just talking about, your analogy with the musician, with the
wizard,
with the wizard, with the magic guy.
Yeah.
Magician. Had a hard time getting that word out.
Yeah.
Once you know the trick, it's no longer a fascinating thing. It no longer captures your imagination.
It
no longer
absolutely is.
mesmerize you. You know the trick. So now you all know the tricks.
Right.
Everybody here knows the tricks. More people need to watch this so they understand it. So that now you know what's behind the curtain and you cannot fall for it anymore.
Absolutely. And we've already shared it. So have you, the viewer, shared it with your friends and family.
Yep.
Because I don't think, I mean, we've got a little bit partisan in our comments today, but this applies to everybody. Like we said earlier, our own government uses this in other societies and other countries.
Well, I don't see conservatism as partisan. I think that's just right. That's the way things should be run.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that if we all can recognize this, maybe we can all legitimately sit down and have a conversation and recognize that the manipulation is happening and occurring and is hurting every one of us.
And maybe we can get back again to a time in which we agree on the problem and we just disagree on the solution.
Yeah.
Now, those were the dividing things before. Those are why we could have conversations with people we didn't agree with, because we agreed this was XYZ was a problem. I think we should fix it this way. You think we should fix it this way. We need to figure out what the best solution is.
Right. Well, and right now we can't agree on what the problem is
we can't agree on simple, straightforward facts.
No, we can't agree on what shoes I should be wearing to Austin's when we get done with this.
Because the very lens of Yuri Bezmenov is focused right on.
Dude, I studied this guy back when I was in, and I was going through a divorce when I wrote the paper on Yuri, so I just phoned it in. And a few weeks ago, I can't remember what we were talking about. I was doing a research on the origin of the term useful idiot. And a lot of people attribute Stalin as the originator of that term, but I couldn't find an origin for that. But that's how I ran back across Yuri Bezmenov's information. I'm like, you know what? I forgot about Yuri. I wrote a paper on him. Let me look into it. And then I'm like, holy crap, man, how did this not resonate with me when I wrote the paper? And I'm like, man, we got to do this. We absolutely got to do this. And hopefully it wasn't too intellectual. I mean, a lot of people watch this stuff. They want the flames and the yelling and the anger and all of that. And we've been kind of groomed to appreciate the anger and the animosity that we can have towards our fellow Americans. In all reality, we need to come together and be able.
Well, that's part of this. That's part of this thing that we just talked about.
Absolutely.
I don't know which one it was, 1 and 2, or part of both, but
yeah,
we need to start being able to speak without that outrage and glare, because all it does is just fuel more outrage.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, that's the absolute truth. I can't even talk right now. You got anything else, Dan?
I think we hit the points.
I think we did. I mean, we did an hour and a half. I mean, how is it that we come back to do this and we used to be able to do an entire show in an hour with a pee break in the middle?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But in all fairness, we didn't record during the pee break. We always pre-recorded the shows so we could cut them down to an hour. So everybody watching and commenting, thank you so very much. Please be sure, if you haven't yet, to go ahead and share this with your friends and family, because we've drawn back the curtain a little bit tonight. We want everybody to see behind this curtain, and we can't do it without you. Dan and I have already shared the cast, and we'll share it again over the next few days just to make sure people have had a chance to see it. But if you don't follow us on Rumble and YouTube, go ahead and do that there. That way you'll have access to our older library of shows, and you can use them as reference if you need to. And that's what we hope to do, is educate you on ways to be better at thinking logically, at critically thinking, and being able to hold your own when it comes to debating others when it comes to politics. That being said, for my buddy Dan, I am your Uncle Wes, also the co-host of the podcast. We'll see you next time on the Driveway Liberty podcast.
You are